Good day, everyone. I'm Anna Ospitskaya, and I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C., suburb of Indiana, Virginia. Welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's Classical Music Show. We're connecting musicians and audience in real-time performances and discussions from around the globe. Today I have a distinguished artist joining me, Annie Chang-Center. She's a violinist, she's a pianist, she's a philanthropist, educator, arts administrator, chamber and orchestral musician. An amazing person, an amazing lady. We continue introducing Sound Espressivo. It's a competition created by a community of musicians, music educators, and music managers with a purpose to make a difference for young musicians, for teachers, parents of music students. We want to empower musicians with new tools, enrich everyone with new thinking, expand horizons of what's possible, what can work, and what can be a source of joy and success for a modern performing artist. And we always come to difficult, challenging problems, and we always offer solutions. Some of them may be fantastic, some of them may be judged as not working, but we as a music community of musicians, forward-looking people, we come from every part of the world together to offer and try out new ways to do better our profession, to do better for our students, and to do better for everyone. And right now I would like to welcome Annie on our show, and I'm so looking forward to speaking with you. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Anna, for having me here. It's an honor.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing an extraordinary important topic. Today, our topic of discussion, and I have a zillion of questions for Annie, it's how the pandemic has changed the classical music world. It changed the world, definitely. And it's better if we accept the change and do something good with it. And you are doing a lot of good with it. So now the floor to you. How it changed and what we should do about it.
So I want to start with my experience of what it was like at the beginning of the pandemic. I still remember the last concert I played was in February of 2019 in Baltimore. And on the flight back to Seattle, I live in Seattle now, the flight was almost empty, which at that time was it was very abnormal.
I'm sure it felt eerie.
It did, and I remember thinking, okay, something is up. And so after I returned to Seattle, sure enough, there was an outbreak in one of the nursing homes, and Seattle was actually the epicenter of the pandemic at first. And immediately, all the concerts were shut down, and all the public venues, performance venues were shut down. And so for performers, your first reaction is, now what? How long is this going to go on? What are we going to do? And I teach as well, and as a music teacher, teaching is a very hands-on experience. It's very different from classroom teaching, and without that in-person contact, it's extremely difficult. And I learned that people are just incredibly resourceful and resilient, both for the educators and the teachers and performers. We have this need to connect with one another. And when everything was cut off from us, we still managed to find a way to continue communicating somehow. And I'm going to first start with the educating part, because I spent a lot of time teaching during the pandemic, much more so than playing. And I felt very blessed that I continued to connect with a lot of public school teachers in the Seattle area, as well as students of all different levels. And teaching ensemble online is not easy because imagine this, every child, every kid is in front of their own camera and they're playing, but they can't hear anybody else. And if they can, there's delay and it's complete chaos. If
and a lot of confusion, of course. Yeah, I can imagine that. Well, we're getting to a very interesting topic, but I would like to introduce you to our audience as well as a performer. I understand that we're going into teaching, but you're a unique performer. You're equally accomplished as a pianist and as a violist. Trust me, I haven't seen too many people who are able to accomplish that.
Thank you.
So yeah, if you don't mind, we would like to play a little part of your performance on the piano as a pianist.
Sure.
So let's see that. Tell us about this performance a little bit.
So before I talk about the performance, I want to just talk a little bit about my philosophy about performing before the pandemic. So I'm one of those people who believe in the quality of the fleeting moment in live performances. So what I loved about performing in the past is that you go to a concert hall, you feel the energy of the audience, and you create music. Everything happens in a short period of time, and then when the concert is over, the music is over. And so I personally actually enjoyed that. And during the pandemic, of course, my philosophy has shifted, because now we have no choice but to utilize different platforms. So the music is shared in a very different way because we can't always do it in person anymore. So this was recorded through an organization in Seattle called Ladies Music Club of Seattle, and the organization itself was established in 1892.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's been around for a very long time, and in fact that foundation is responsible for starting the Seattle Symphony. So it's really kind of the foundation of the classical
and
music.
it spans over so many generations of supporters. That's incredible.
It is incredible.
Very reliable mission.
Yeah, so I am one of their musicians, and they created this online virtual concert series, and the recording was made for that. Mm-hmm. And I also want to say a little bit about this particular piece that has, it's very personal to me. It's a piece that I meditate with very often. I wake up in the morning before I start practicing or teaching. I go to this piece because there is something so spiritual about it. And so that...
Yeah, just to reiterate, we just played the aria from the Goldberg Variations, and I believe Bach himself treated that piece as special because he engraved the plates for the Klavierübung, the entire Klavierübung, where that piece is included, to be published, and that's a very painstaking job. If anyone had tried engraving in a copper plate, anything, you would know it takes quite a bit of skill and an enormous amount of patience, and so it was a very special piece for Bach himself.
Wow. Yeah. So anyway, so that's the history behind that recording, and I believe you have another clip
Yes,
of
and
me playing viola, also by Bach.
also Bach. And I thought that choice meant something, and I'm going to ask you a question about that after we watch the second one.
Okay.
That is so beautiful.
Thank you.
I don't know how you do that. You're such a beautiful pianist, fully round, accomplished, performer on piano, and now here we have back to back on viola.
I actually recorded both at the same, in the same recording session. So it was, I haven't done that in a long time, so it was kind of an interesting experience for me. But I want to say something about Bach's cello suites, because I love that music so much. And that's another set of music that I go to, that I start with. It's another meditation piece I go to. Not just this particular one, but really all different movements from his suites.
You mentioned meditation and choosing Bach. Is there some particular connection between the need to meditate and the going to Bach's music for that?
Absolutely. So I always feel that Bach's music has this way of connecting with the divine. At the same time, it also has a lot of human qualities, the human emotions. And he is also an incredible architect. And there's just, it's just incredibly not only satisfying, but elevating. Everything, literally when I'm playing Bach, I feel like everything goes up. and it kind of, it's transcendental. It literally transcends you to a different place.
Incredible. So now let's talk again about the teaching and the changes which pandemic brought, and what you do to make the most out of the changes and probably minimize the negative effects of it.
So I want to first start with the positive. I think there is something about the screen that makes people a little more focused. especially kids. And during the pandemic, another positive thing is kids are not running around doing 100 things at the same time. They don't have 5 sports events to go to, and many different outside of school activities. And so for a lot of students, music became an anchoring thing for them. It's calming, it's soothing. And I worked with a couple public high school teachers in Seattle, and they're incredibly dedicated. They created systems where the students have to record segments throughout the school year to learn. One of the schools did this. They had everybody learn the finale of the Sibelius Second Symphony. The music is incredibly powerful and glorious, and I think even though the kids were learning their own parts isolately, but they know what the music is like, and they strive for it, knowing that in the end either there was going to be a recording of everybody coming together, or in this case, in June, when things started to open up a little bit, they had the first in-person concert, and it was incredibly exciting to just see the students playing, listening to one another for the first time, because online you can't do that. So there are software that you can use where you can ask the students to go in, record 3 lines, and then the software can pull everything together immediately. And then that way at least the students can get an idea of what they sound like with other kids.
But do you feel those technological tools, which they existed for a long time, and of course as musicians we were blessed with the ability to perform together and to play the chamber music in real time, and we took it for granted. So a lot of people did not really even look into those tools because there was no really need for that. Do you believe that entrance of all this technology into musicians' routine of teaching can be beneficial, or are we just sitting here waiting for this to be over?
Well, I think what's happening, or what will continue to happen, is this hybrid way of teaching. So the in-person will continue, but I think there are benefits of using the technology. So for instance, in an orchestral situation for kids, a lot of them used to just kind of coast along. They don't necessarily count on their own. They rely on stronger players. and when they had to record their own parts, they couldn't do that. They have to play.
They had to learn how to.
Yeah, exactly. And
they had to learn how to be responsible for their own part. I so understand that can provide a lot of potential for growth.
Absolutely. So what happened was, in the end, you actually get a much stronger orchestra because everyone is doing their part.
Well, and the students have an opportunity to learn that every part actually matters.
Yes.
Whether or not they have their ears trained to be able to recognize it while they're playing as a group or not yet. It's a matter of, training the ears, because as professionals, of course, we can hear everyone in the group. But
yes.
For kids, it's very hard sometimes to convince the kids of something like that unless they get a chance to experience it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I did find it was very helpful to play the music for them so they can hear what the entire symphony sounds like rather than just the viola part, which is a little hard to tell sometimes. But yeah.
Wonderful. Well, let's go into this topic again. And I know we had one more topic, which we thought maybe would touch a little bit. So how the musicians went from physical to virtual and what it meant to you in your own practicing of our profession.
So the reason why I love performing is that connection with the audience in person, right? We're all there. Performances are a shared experience.
Absolutely.
For the performers and for the audience, and we have this energy that's kind of just circulating back and forth. It's really kind of one, where we're all together. When you do a virtual performance, you are alone. like those recordings I made, there were two people there, a coordinator and the cameraman, and it was a very different experience because I was centering myself in a different way, I would say, and you know that it's going to be connected. You're going to use that. It's going to be connected with a very wide audience, but in the moment you're not. And so you kind of have to create your own imageries of what it's like to be performing. Let's say I'm performing this with people there, and you can imagine that. It's not the same, but it can be done. And we're going to show a clip of 14 violinists playing the chaconne, which is the monumental piece of the entire classical repertoire. And,
Yes.
And what amazed me about that recording is there are 14 violinists, each taking one theme or variation, one right after another. They're all world-class violinists, and the first of all, the editing is unbelievable, and the musicianship, the artistry that came out of that entire clip. It's watching 14 best violinists in the world, basically playing sharing the same music, but playing without losing their individual personalities and sound, which is very fascinating.
Yeah, let's hear the clip. It's pretty fascinating. Yes, what an incredibly satisfying experience to hear the chaconne go from the hands of one incredible violinist to the hands of the other, to the hands of the other, and one could assume that it's not going to work because everyone has their own tempo, has their own approach, has their own bowing, their own everything. But technical sides aside, I feel that this video actually brought out the wealth of interpretation from Bach's piece.
Absolutely. And I think it's also a really good example of how a solo piece that's usually done on stage with one player now can be a collective effort through this technology. And the editing, isn't that unbelievable?
The editing is incredible.
Yeah, it's seamless, both visually and with the audio as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, but let's speak about combining the technology with the desire and need of performing artists to be on stage in the moment. Like you were talking, I share with you the love for that precious moment where the performance is happening, unfolding like a story in real time, and is being perceived and being received by people in real time, and that incredible connection with the audience, which does happen in real time. Have you had experience with that aspect with virtual live performing, and how did your experience go with that?
I think with a virtual performance, let's talk about the foundation of performing. So that does not change. We all go in knowing the music very, very well and at a personal level. So we know exactly how we want to portray the music. And in terms of that, it doesn't matter the platform you're using to perform, that does not change. I think what changes can be the energy, because when you have an audience, you get that feedback and it's exciting and it feels much more lively, whereas when you're playing on your own without an audience, it's almost like a deep practice in a way, or it can become that way, even though if it's streamed live, you do know there's audience out there, but there's still a little bit of that barrier. And
Absolutely. Do you think that barrier is just there and we need to learn how to deal with it and just accept it and find new ways to perform, maybe more immersed into our own? Or do you see the future of this as that barrier somehow becoming less of a barrier and more of a communication, two-way communication?
I think that's already happening, actually, because I see we have seen a lot of artists who are, well, in the Shikong, we could see that the artists, they're recording from their own practice room or living room, and they're not dressed in extreme formal attire like we would in fancy concert halls. And so that in itself, I think, already took down the barrier with the viewers. And also, one thing I noticed was the intimacy of watching these players in videos, because you really feel the Hadlick, for instance, that intensity, and you get that in concert halls, but in such small close-ups, you really get that energy in a whole different way. So it's kind of connecting in a different way.
I can feel that too. You almost are invited inside the process of the music being created in the moment.
Yes.
By the artists. The artists are stepping out of our, tall, 6 foot tall, 10 foot tall stages, and
Right.
coming to the same floor with everyone else as people, and sharing themselves in the most naked and vulnerable way. I find that incredible shift.
Yes, and I think that's going to draw more classical listeners and viewers and lovers. Because a lot of people, the classical music has this myth that it's just really elite. It's kind of, you have to know what you're listening for. And a lot of people talk about how they're afraid to go to a concert hall because they don't know what to wear or they don't know when to clap.
And they're afraid to be judged. That's another part of it.
Exactly. And now with the technology, people can just watch anything online at home. They don't have to worry about people looking at them funny or
Exactly. And
they're-
they can even have a glass of wine, which generally you're not permitted in the concert hall, and they can
Right.
have their phones turned on too.
yeah, you can do a lot of things now and still enjoy really, really wonderful music making at a high level. So I think in a way we're kind of entering a different world of this wonderful hybrid. I think we're still experimenting, but there are a lot of great things happening.
But do you think majority of professional musicians are ready for experimenting with that, for embracing the hybrid as a positive shift in our profession?
I think you will always get a mix. And I have to admit, earlier I talked about how I am one of those performers that I actually never liked recording anything because I believed in just the fleeting moments and the beauty of those fleeting moments and detachment. Once you're done, go on, move on to learning the next repertoire or do something else. And because of the pandemic, I am realizing that I have to connect with people in a different way through music, because the physical concert halls, the physical performing spaces are not the same now. I mean, even now there's social distancing, people have to come with masks, and some people, if they're not vaccinated, they can't go there. So we're not really back in normal, and in a way I am happy to see that all the concert series are streaming their concerts, so nobody misses out. If you want to show up in person, you have that option. So in terms of musicians, I think it's beneficial for all of us.
It was an eye-opening experience for many of us, myself included.
Yes.
To step into unknown and to embrace that we got to learn how to use the technology to the best of the music and musicianship. You're going to be also this week on a panel for a very important and challenging discussion, judging the competitions in the modern environment, and the competitions as well are changing. And of course, this technology and the pandemic situation put its own stamp on the competing experience. A lot of competitions were only able to continue going on through one format and one only, where the contestants have to record their entries and wait for someone to send them, comments. So, and we're very grateful for you to come on board the Sound Espressivo, because we are pioneering a completely different format. And we understand that, it takes courage for musicians to say, okay, I will judge in real time. I will provide comments to a contestant, unedited, uncensored, in real time. It takes a lot of courage.
Well, I think it's wonderful that, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I am absolutely honored to be serving as a judge alongside some incredible musicians. So thank you. And in terms of I think of the virtual competitions like this one, where the contestants can get feedback from judges immediately after. That's such a gift, because there's this immediate interaction that can happen that typically cannot happen in any competitions. It's
certainly not part of the tradition of the competitions to create that openness between the contestants and the judges. Most of the time, competitions put an extra barrier for lots of reasons, and being familiar with each other can affect the results, and all of those things. There's a lot of considerations going in there, but the competitions had not done this immediate communication between contestants and the judges for many reasons in the past. So we'll have the panel discussion addressing those questions. And we are also, the Sound Espressivo is also going sort of back to judging and making decisions as a discussion, as a deliberation, where many competitions in the past 20 years moved away from that model to scoring and basically making all the choices based on scores in an attempt to provide more objectivity. I think that was the whole idea. So the competition board and the community of musicians who are adding to the concept, I had a feeling that maybe the scoring is actually not the most objective way. The more objective way is for us to discuss and come to a conclusion as artists. So that model is back in testing.
Yeah, I was going to say I agree with you 100% there, because as a judge, I have judged some competitions in the past, and how do you put a number on someone's playing? I had a really hard time with that, because everyone comes in with different strengths and different weaknesses, and how do you, again, how do you put a label to that at an individual level? So,
well, you can, but you definitely are missing out on appreciating the uniqueness and individuality, because you're trying to be objective. So you're trying
nuances,
nuances are getting lost in that kind of judging,
right,
and
exactly.
we want to test that model of when it's discussed by the panel of judges. Last year we already tested it, and it worked out really well, except that the judges were in the deliberation room for a long time, and I think they were having a good time. We were not allowed to enter those rooms until they would give us the signal they're done.
That's funny. There's probably some socializing going on in addition to the
I don't know. I don't know what was going behind those closed doors, but some deliberations took quite a while, and for the practical sake of saving time, maybe that wouldn't work, but for the purpose of being generous and being giving and being supportive of the contestants, it worked out really, really well, because the contestants were able to take away something they can use for their future development and growth.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's the feedback we got, so we're doing it again.
That's wonderful. I'm really looking forward to that.
So, but we'll have a lot of those discussions, this week when you're coming on a panel, and I can't wait to hear your perspective, because it's unique. It's two instruments. It's chamber music. It's working with children, and also being arts administrator as well. So you have that perspective of practicality of things, like you were talking about, the practical aspect and how that can enhance the students' learning experience. The just simple practicality that they had more time and they could focus.
Right.
That perspective of overarching, of you being multifaceted and having hands-on experience with everything, including arts administration. That's invaluable input in the competition and when you'll be judging. I'm so looking forward to that judging.
Thank you. Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, Annie, would you like to share something else? Did you have some other things you wanted to bring up?
Do we have time for one more clip? Or
yeah, we have, absolutely.
Okay.
But I was just going to ask you if there were some parts of the topics which we didn't yet cover.
Well, with the competition, I do want to mention one thing. So there's this Chopin International Piano Competition that just happened, and I was following it a little bit, not since round one, but definitely in the final round. And what struck me was, because of technology, we can actually sit in and watch these great international competitions, music competitions, which is relatively new. It started, I think the broadcast part of it started happening even a little bit before the pandemic, but now it's the way the competitions are made. It's almost as if you're watching a sports event. It's like
exactly
watching the Olympics, and it's truly wonderful, because you get to see the behind the scenes, and you see people's comments. And I think one of the really popular contestants, Sorota, Japanese pianist, he had, I think, something like 2.1 million views.
Incredible.
Incredible. Yeah.
Speaking of popularizing classical music and making it all accessible and all inclusive, that's fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. And I bet of those 2.1 million viewers, some of them are probably not musicians, and they're just curious. And
that's wonderful. That
is.
Curiosity can be satisfied, and I'm going to just say I've never played in the concert hall which would fit 2 million people.
Of course, none of us have. Yeah, exactly. So
But now we do.
Yes, and also there, it doesn't matter where the concert happens. You can watch it from anywhere in the world, and that's such an incredible blessing.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that word because it is a blessing. I was able to watch so many live streamed performances of concerts which I wish I could go to physically, but even if there were no pandemic, there's no money in the world which would support me traveling all over to these
Right.
concerts. I just can't afford it.
Right, yeah.
But now I can with a click of a
Right.
button.
Isn't that amazing when you think of it? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where technology is really beneficial for performing artists.
Yes, if we make the most use of it.
Yes, absolutely.
The best use of it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Would you like to show the last clip and say a few words before we show it?
This is the Bach double? Or-
That's right.
Okay. So this clip I found about a year ago, I think, and so many thoughts went through my mind when I saw this. One is all these artists, they're recording their own parts. They can't hear other people, but they play so beautifully together. And I'm not talking about just ensemble work. I'm talking about balance, because this is a piece that every part has its own place. You have to know exactly where you fit. And it's easy to do when you're playing everything in person, because you can respond to one another, you can hear one another, you can make adjustments, just by hearing and watching your colleagues. But in this case, they've recorded by themselves and from their own rooms, or some players dressed pretty nicely and some were in a t-shirt and there's the cellist recording on a boat. And how they were able to pull all of the audio tracks together so beautifully, it's beyond me. Whoever did put this together is just so beautiful, so beautiful.
Bravo.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
That's well done. Let's watch it. wonderful way to hear Bach's music in the new world, new age, and with all this new technology. Incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I want to thank you, Annie, for bringing these topics, very important topics for musicians, students, parents, for everyone who has some connection with classical music and jazz. And I really appreciate you bringing Bach's music to our program. This entire program had an ongoing red line theme of Bach and what that music means to us today, and how we as musicians are able to communicate, continue to communicate, and develop our ways of communicating. Thank you for raising those questions and bringing your point of view, your very positive outlook on how things will go forward. That's a gift. Because we start with a positive outlook and then we find solutions, not the other way around.
Exactly. Yeah. But then it can evolve to something better. So, yeah.
Exactly, and it is being evolved by the hands of people like Annie Center, our incredible guest today.
Thank you.
Absolutely, and I want to thank you again for taking time and being with us today, and for coming again this week to the panel discussion.
Yes.
How do we judge competitions in the modern environment?
Yeah.
How do we change our judging, or maybe don't change? I'm dying to hear that discussion.
Right.
And I want to thank our viewers and supporters of these programs. This again is a live classical music and jazz show by Virtual Concert Halls. And we want to thank very much a great supporter of our programming, the History of Music channel. Thank you for supporting our themes, our programming, and for helping us reach wider with our offering. And I also want to say many, many thanks to the Virtual Concert Hall's team of creators, producers, and directors. And a special thanks goes to Ante Božić Kudrić, who is our director of the show today. He's a composer and a pianist and multifaceted, talented person who's producing this show today for us. And with that, we're going to say goodbye, but not for very long. And we'll see you again very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Espressivo Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. Prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.
Don't glitch.
Oh my gosh!
Thank you so much. That was fun.
Annie, you're such a genuine communicator. I admire your way of speaking. It really
thank
speaks to
you.
the heart. Amazing.
Thank
there
you.
was
You're really natural, yeah. Yeah, like you
There
did
was-
this many times before.
yeah, it just seems like that's that's what you do all day long.
Yeah. Well, I teach, so maybe it's the communicating part.
We had this wonderful
Yeah, I'm
comment.
so sorry. It was just at the end, and you were
yeah, we were
finished.
unable
it's
to
like-
show it. Yeah,
I showed it for a quick second.
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, very nice. That's from I believe from LinkedIn. We're streaming onto
Yeah.
several different platforms. Annie, I'm really looking forward to that panel discussion. It's going to be so interesting and
Yes.
so fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yeah,
It's a different world we're in, really. I feel like we're in between worlds right now. A little
Yeah,
bit, right?
yeah.
Yeah, everyone is trying to figure things out and trying different things. And yeah.
I feel like that's a great